Fogel of the Water Watch organization. We're a nonprofit international water monitoring consortium that takes water samples by canoe and kayak all over the world.
I'm Claudia Fowler, and I'm a science teacher at University Laboratory School.
I'm Noel Hammett, and pardon me for not standing up, but I'm with the Geography Education Alliance, and I'm an educator up at LSU. I teach teachers.
I'm Phil Larimore, and I'm the coordinator for the Louisiana Geographic Education Alliance. And of course, our theme this summer is water anywhere, anyway. And also, I teach at LSU in the Department of Geography.
My name is Bill Miller. I'm a member of the staff of the Louisiana Department of Education. And these gentlemen are my partners in the Louisiana Geography Education Alliance.
Paul Long, Program Manager of Science and Environmental Education, State Department of Education.
Bobby Skull, part-time kayaker. Everybody water samples. All over the world here. But Director of Louisiana Energy and Environmental Resource and Information Center.
I'm Dinah May Gardner. I'm an educator with the Louisiana Nature and Science Center in New Orleans.
I'm Kathy Wascom with the Louisiana Wildlife Federation. I'm their Education Conservation Chair and their State Secretary.
I'm Randy Langto, Executive Director of the Louisiana Wildlife Federation.
Valerie Jones, Southern University Center for Energy and Environmental Studies.
I'm Edward Flynn, in charge of Health and Safety Affairs for the Louisiana Chemical Association.
I'm Florence Robinson, the Department of Biology at Southern University. I'm on the board of LEAN, and I'm a community activist.
Joel Lindsay, Southern University Center for Energy and Environmental Studies here in Baton Rouge.
Thank you. You're a group of great people, and I thank you for coming today to share. And if you'll welcome Bob and Cindy for their presentation. Thank you.
We spent yesterday in Austin, Texas, talking to the Texas Water Commission, and it's interesting how relationships develop. We're trying to do somewhat the same kind of thing, talking about what can be done with high school students to help put people out into the rivers. Our project started with a scientific literacy grant in 1989. We got an RFP from the state of Illinois. State of Illinois puts about $10 million a year into scientific literacy, has been doing it since 1989. So the first year I decided to write a grant on something, had a brainstorm driving home from my mama's house in Montana, felt I ought to be involved a little more in environmental education, and I didn't know how to quite do it because I've been one of those armchair environmentalists for years. I contribute to Greenpeace and to National Wildlife Federation and Sierra Club, and I send my check annually. And I was in the first Earth Day in 1970. I was out with high school kids on the river, in the Chattahoochee River down in Georgia. And I have been a part of the movement, but as I gotten older and more yuppie, I guess, I lost my my fervor, and I sent checks instead of becoming involved. And yet I became a college professor, so I tried to figure out how in the heck can I be involved and do the things that I do as a college professor, which some of you are, or a teacher. And I tried to analyze, as we should, what skills do we have to offer to this whole, to the whole movement. And two of the real good skills that I have managed to develop over the years have been BSing, and that's of course a very necessary thing for these kinds of things. And then I found out that I am a pretty able grant writer, and I didn't know that, but that's what happened. And so I put this grant together and to start the project, and we had 8 schools. And that I threw the grant in the mail, and I went to visit my daughter in Georgia, thinking or in Florida, I think I never get anything. And they called me, Paul's equivalent in the state of Illinois called me and said, we really like this idea. We want to double your money. And that's been the story of this project ever since. Somehow, we've gotten an incredible amount. My budget's $500,000 right now this year. Okay? We're talking about money. Every time I want money, there's money to do this. Somehow, people want to involve education. Now, I was talking to some people yesterday from the State Department of the Water Commission in Texas, and they don't have any money. But I'm telling you, there's money for teachers to go out and do these kinds of things. And what I want to do is just share with you today what Cindy and I have done over the last, Cindy was one of those original 8 schools. And Cindy, by the way, is not an employee of the university. She is an employee of Jerseyville High School. She is on leave from Jerseyville High School. She's an English and a social studies teacher. I'm the science teacher component, and we scrounge the other components that we need, the computer, from our college staff. So in part of our program, I think any state program that does the thing we're doing functions best in a university. Because in a university, we have tremendous resources to offer to keep this program going. I get student workers. They're slave labor. I have 4 or 5 of them. They do all the mailings and all the corresponding. They do all the newsletters. I have graduate students. Every year I get 1 or 2 ones. They're all cheap labor. And they're in this to learn out of it. They don't have to pay them. You don't have to have a line. You can use them. And then I have computer labs. If my computer breaks down, I don't have to pay anybody. I go upstairs and talk to people, and we get it fixed. So I get a lot of free resources through the university. So wherever I've gone into the states that are starting a water program, such as the one we're doing, I suggest that they get a university component in there. The other thing is, most of us, my role in academia is to create grants and to write articles. I don't have to do much else. And if I can do those kinds of things, I'm rewarded by tenure, salary increases, merit pay, and all of those merit pay, if we get them in the universities anymore. I know that a lot of 1% and 2%, we're talking about great ones, but it all builds up so that when the university becomes a part of this, my job becomes the creation of this program. So I created the program. Now we've just started, we have been working with Purdue University over in Indiana. We started with 5 schools 2 years ago, Cindy. And we now have 25 schools. They have their own 800 number, and they're called Water Watchers of Indiana. All of their money was raised from private sources. Everything to bring these 20 schools online in the state of Indiana came from private sources. And it came, many of the Indiana schools are ag teachers, okay, that do the science in the ag department, because in the ag department in Indiana, part of the curriculum is managing of resources. So we've developed this thing, completely different than ours. In Minnesota, we think that there's going to be a state coordinator at one of the universities hired through fine money through the Water Pollution Board at Minnesota. So they're finding people, and the money's coming back to hire somebody to be my job, and then to hire or to have someone like Cindy's job to sort of monitor and to keep this program going. You need that, and of course that's how I'm going to approach the whole idea, because I think it's hard to do it through an agency like New Orleans. You know, I think it's much harder to do a statewide program through some of the private organizations. It's much easier to do it through LSU because you already have this network which reaches out through all the state, and it is easier to get money through the universities. We have Dwight D. Eisenhower money, which I've gotten every year for the last, this will be the 4th year. And most of our Illinois schools were brought in under Dwight D. Eisenhower money. If any of you in a university want to write a Dwight D. Eisenhower grant, every state board of higher ed in the United States gets X amount of money, depending upon the number of schools, for teacher training. That Dwight D. Eisenhower thing is being refunded through the Congress this year, right at this time, but the money only goes to universities for teacher training. Cindy and I have our copies of the grants, and we'll be happy to share those with you. We'll throw them in the mail, and you can look at our budget to see what we've done. Now, I know that some of the museums have been getting those grants also, so you may want to look at that. But we brought in, probably out of 150 schools that we have in Illinois, we brought in almost 100 of them through Eisenhower money. And that provides them all the equipment and the materials and the training for those grants. So there is lots of money out there that's available to us that may not be available to other organizations. And of course, what you then do is we've tied into all of the non-for-profit organizations because we're doing their job. Sort of, we're doing training and putting people out in the river. And what I'm going to talk to you about is just sort of our product and our program that we've put together. It's not the only answer to the thing, because obviously Water Watchers of Indiana has done it somewhat differently, but we've worked with those people through the years to try to get them off the ground. Now our communication with Mel and his people over at Purdue will be through the modem, and we talk to each other, because what we're going to do now is share data. We've developed a HyperCard stack this last year. We will be able to give you a copy of the HyperCard stack. It will have all of the data get collected by the kids this year. Next year, if we have a Louisiana school at Baton Rouge or New Orleans who sends us data, there will be a little bulb on Louisiana, and the kids' data can be sent there. And you'll download the data through our computer network, through internet. And if LSU and the Louisiana gets a program started with doing water monitoring, we will deal, Cindy and I will deal with whoever the person is who is developing that, and we'll help you get started. Now, we've gotten 2 grants funded by NSF for regional schools this last year. One is in South Dakota, and we'll be going up to South Dakota to help them do their first training session. And we train 2 South Dakota teachers, 3 South Dakota teachers. They've been with us 2 summers, and they're going to be the key to their program. What we do is all of our training is done by teachers, training other teachers with us university folks sitting there as support, and the various organizational people sitting there as support and tying in that way. But our teachers do all the training. Now, we've also developed a 6-model science curriculum unit set that's going to be published by Addison Wesley this summer. And we are field testing those for the last time. And we had a training session, and you should get a brochure like this. We had a training session this summer where we trained people to use these curriculums. Now, this is this summer's training session brochure, but if you look at it, it's August 9th through 13th. It's going to be the same week next summer. And if any of you have high school teachers that you want to send up to it, I promise you we will find a slot for them, because we take care of our friends who are trying to get started. Because what we want to do is get those people, we had 195 teachers, all interested in water training. We had 55 chemistry teachers, 45 biology teachers, 10 or 12 earth science teachers, 45 English teachers, and 24 geography teachers, and 5 math teachers all together, and their sole interest was water love. Now, I don't know if you can imagine the energy that was there and reaching out, but we brought 1 in from Arkansas. She's the seed for Arkansas. We brought 2 from California. They're the seed for California, because what we're trying to do is do in California and in Arkansas and in Pennsylvania and in Ohio what we're trying to do here. We will help train those teachers a little further for you next summer and the following summers. Well, in the meantime, we're working with people to try to use our curriculum and our model to create your own model so that you can then go back and do something in the state of Louisiana. We're just offering to help you get started, whatever way we can. We have been able to help people get money because we're a national organization. We received a National Science Foundation grant, so somewhere in the academic world, we're wonderful. You know, when you get an NSF grant, you're wonderful. And we kind of parlayed that into meeting with a lot of other people. We're getting money from Caterpillar. We're getting money from Illinois Bell. We're getting small amounts of money from Shell Oil Company. We're getting money from here and there, but what we're trying to do is get that money to go directly into the schools. So Solid Waste Management Incorporated gave $3,000 to one of our little schools to get started. Every time I go to a training session with my teachers, I do a grant writing session for them, because I'm trying to teach them how to write grants so they can become self-sufficient. And not only that, when they go back to their community, they become environmental activists with some grant writing skills. And our English teachers are part of this, are learning how to write grants along with the science teachers, which makes a hell of a team, because you've got the science ideas and you've got the English ideas. And Cindy is going to be talking to you about, she caused the town to put in a whole new sewage system in the town, she and her kids. Well, now us science teachers, we have never been trained to do political action and to know government and that kind of stuff. But Cindy and her science teacher and her English teacher, as a team, found out the fecal coliform was too high, tested it, went to the lab and tested it, sent letters, wrote to congressmen, called, did all the political action. The town had to put in a new sewage system as a result of that kind of stuff. So our program is interdisciplinary. For those of you in education, we have an article coming out in Ed Leadership. And when you get to be Ed Leadership, it's sort of like NSF. It's when they're accepting the idea. And one of the hottest ideas in education today is interdisciplinary cross-curricular ideas. Texas has a whole strand. The state of Maryland requires people to go out and be volunteers in order to graduate from Maryland. Okay, these kinds of things are reaching, and our river project is one of those things that's, Cindy and I, when we put this stuff together, didn't think that it was going to be on the cutting edge. It was just an idea that sort of bubbled out and came to be, but it is on the cutting edge of what's happening in education today. And what we're trying to do is say to you in Louisiana and Mary Lee and have worked together with a project for the last a couple years, and we've thought, how can we bring this to Louisiana? And what we have to do is there, because the teachers are crying to be involved in something that involves their kids and themselves in making the world better. And I will tell you, we started with 8 schools in 1990. In February of 1990, we have 250 now. The only thing that will stop you from getting schools in Louisiana is the money to buy them equipment, because they can't buy it from themselves. The only thing that will stop you, because we'll bring a team of teachers down here and train the first ones, and within 2 years you'll have experienced teachers and you won't need us anymore, and Louisiana will begin to get out there and monitor the rivers. And I will tell you, in Illinois right now, we've been doing this since 1990. Last year we had 20,000 kids on the river in April. And my kids from my schools in Illinois will never ever cross another river in their lives, ever, without looking down in that river and wondering what the quality of that river is like, because they've been on that river and they've been into that water and they've been afraid to touch it, and it's the first time in their lives they ever have. And if we can continue to do that for 10 years, which is what I figure my life expectancy of this project is going to be, 10 years, then I will have created millions of kids with water awareness, and we will have created clean water out of this. So I'm giving my life to this project and to cleaning up the stream, because it's the only way that I figure I can do that, or ever will have a chance to do that. And I'm, to a certain degree, using the kids. Okay? Using the kids, because all of us old boys and old girls can get out there on the river and wave our flag as much as we want to, and nobody will pay you any attention. But if you've got 20 kids out there calling Senator or Representative Bob Michaels saying that town is polluting my river, and Bob Michaels on the phone saying, what in the hell's going on down there? You better get this situation fixed up. They're causing me problems. And a sewage system was put in and caused to be put in Henry, Illinois by an English teacher in a Catholic high school. Okay, it happened just like that. She has no science background, she has no, she's just an English teacher, and she's 2 years away from retirement, and she's the sweetest, loveliest little old lady you ever saw. And she caused the town to put in a sewage system. Now, she had the science teacher doing the testing, but she had the political action teacher to fall back on, the social studies teacher. Okay, we're talking about an action-oriented kind of program, and what we need to do is get the kids started. Because if you're going to clean up Cancer Alley, it's going to have to start from the kids, I think. And what I want you to do is to think of this, how we can do this in there using our model. And again, like I say, we'll help you get started, and then you're on your own. We don't want to be the Louisiana River Project. We don't even want to call it the Louisiana River Project. We want to call it whatever you want to call it, but we want to get the kids started. And that's why I'm here today, okay? To help you get the kids started. We got a geography curriculum too up there that we're creating. 5 themes of geography, it's wonderful. And I'll share it with you and I'll send copies down to you. And you can talk about getting your teachers up there in geography, doing geography kinds of things, and talking about how people impact the river. And Cindy, do you want to say anything before I show some slides?
To the geography, Norm Bettis at ISU. Okay, we've been working with him. We have one teacher, Bob Ashley, who is the lead writer on the geography, and Norm Bettis worked together. So he's read it and commented it and done the test and read through the test course. So we feel pretty good about the geography. But it is based on 5 things. Hands on.
That'll keep my funding happy.
That's just what we want.
Do I turn off the lights here? There we go. Do I turn off any more? Do we know how to turn off the lights here?
That's fine.
That's the air conditioning. There's one right over there. Turn down.
Okay, we need this one out up front here, I think.
Yeah, some of these slides are very light.
We need to work on our slide presentation. We didn't think we were going to have such illustrious groups. That's it.
That's it. That's it. You getting there.
Well, some rivers are big, as you know. Okay, that's the Illinois before it, or that's the Mississippi up near St. Louis before it went haywire. And of course, some rivers are small, as you well know. And the problem with studying rivers is that they're so regional. And of course, what we've tried to do is put together this regional river awareness that some rivers are so important that they created the nation out of. I mean, the nation was created out of them. You know, and the real sad thing about this wonderful river that we have, the Mississippi, that flows down through the heartland that drains 40% of the United States. If you start looking at the history books, the American history books that most kids use in the United States now, and you look through the table of contents or the index, and you say, how many times is the Mississippi River mentioned as important in the history books? And I will tell you that if you look at most history books, if you have 5 times that it's indexed, that will be an exception. And most of the time it's 1 or 2 times that it's mentioned in the history books. Now, what we've done is we've taken this magnificent river that helped create this country, and we've turned it into nothing more than something that forms a border or takes care of our sewage, and it's not important to us anymore. And of course, one of the things that we look at in geography and in history is that the river is important, and we have to begin to deal with it. And we have to begin to deal with it as an important source of culture and of pride for our community. And the River Project does that. Our river is absolutely beautiful. This road, of course, no longer exists. Right about in here is where the Missouri River comes in. The Missouri River comes straight in like this and slammed into that with all this rain. It dug a hole 70 to 80 feet deep right there when it hit and turned south. And that road no longer is there. Cindy used to drive that every day, and the road's gone. And the Mississippi and the Missouri have a new meeting point as a result of this last flood. One place up the road about 20 miles where it broke through the levee, and you all probably read about it, it was at Hardin, Illinois. It actually came over the levee with such force that it cut a hole 200 feet deep into the ground, went down to bedrock. The Mississippi did. And south of this point, about 40 miles, actually we have another part of Illinois on the west side of the Mississippi River. There are 3 parts now instead of 2 parts that are on the west side. So this last flood has completely changed things. The other thing that's completely changed is the last time this flooded in such quantity was in 1844. And of course, since 1844, deposits have been building up on the bottom in every one of these major pools. And now with this last flood, every single bit of the nasty crap that was in the bottom of this, guess where it came? Yes, right down here, to add to Cancer Alley's dilemma and its problems. So we are really pleased now that our fish can forage on the bottom and not have all of this nasty stuff, but we're sorry we sent it to you. Somewhat sorry. The water was probably up to right about here with the last flood. That's sort of anecdotal in this thing, and of course you're going to see this sign here is what the river to us is really important because we're right at the confluence of the Missouri and the Illinois and the Mississippi, and Ohio's not far down, so barge traffic is very, very important to us, and all of the agriculture and the industry that's brought about by it. Our rivers are beautiful. This is a bluff. The Indian artifacts and the kind of stuff. This was it is a major historical area, and of course, as you well know from all of your old homes, the Mississippi brought us incredible old things and history, recreation. It's up in our area. The pools are great recreational sites, and of course, it also brings us in. And this is one of the problems. About 85% of our wetlands were located along rivers, and they're now gone in the state of Illinois. Now, you're blessed with wetlands down here because they can't drain them because there's no place to put the water. But up there, we're losing about 3% a year of our wetlands. And of course, that's been one of the major reasons we flooded is they tried to build these huge dikes up and get rid of the wetlands so that they could farm. And now something is going to have to be changed. This is an unusual scene to see beaver down along the Mississippi, but they are there in some of the smaller streams. And of course, once we get the kids in the water, then they can't help but see what we do to the water. And you know, Greenpeace has a article or a movie out called "Everybody Lives Downstream," which you guys can all get free. And if you need a copy, we can get you a copy. And it shows this, but kids do not get down on the river. They either go over it or alongside of it. They have no idea what they do to go downstream. Actually, you guys, if you get Mississippi River water, let's see, I went to the bathroom 4 days ago in St. Louis. Well, have a drink, because that's where your water comes from. But most kids don't have any realization. And I talk to them about, you know, do unto others what they would have you do to them, or however that goes. And whatever you throw in the water is going to end up in somebody's drinking water. But I don't think we think about that. We don't have any idea how important water is. Cindy and I bought Money Magazine, and if you buy the September issue of Money Magazine, it lists all the places in the United States that are good to live. And the 2 places that are best to live the three top places best to live in the United States according to Money Magazine. Number 1 is Rochester, Minnesota. Number 2 is Madison, Wisconsin. Number 3 is Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. Now I looked for Louisiana, and I think it was 125th or 128th was New Orleans down the line, and then Baton Rouge was down there. We've got a copy of the magazine. Do you know what one of all the minor criteria, the top criteria was for living in that town based on a ranking of 0 to 10 was clean water. Was clean water.
But we're gonna move up there, we're getting gambling.
Well, I don't think that's going to get it. I don't think Money Magazine will let you do that. I saw that in the thing. We've got a lot of gambling already. But the point I'm making is now all of a sudden appearing on Money Magazine's reasons to live in a place is water. And if you just don't start thinking about water in your community, then people are not going to come there, because look at what Rochester and Minnesota and Wisconsin give you. They give you beautiful, clean lakes, and all of the places that were there, which are good places to live, including Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where we're going in a couple of weeks to do training with South Dakota, all have abundant and clean water. So it is a major concern, and it is something that's going to affect the economy of the state in the future, clean water, as it probably already is doing in Louisiana negatively because of the water problems you have here. So we have those here, and this happens to be right across from St. Louis. Our kids come down here and monitor. They clean it up, the bums sleep there. They clean it up, the bums sleep there. The water washes down the river. Of course, they get down. Some of the city kids see these things. One of our groups of kids was doing a nitrate study, and they'd done the nitrate study for 3 weeks previous to this one time they were out, and they came out and they saw this. Dead fish laying out. And then they went and did the nitrate test, and the whole nitrate thing just shot off the top of the roof. And they said, wow. And then one of the kids said, hey, I know what it is. And all of these farm kids had been out in the field putting anhydrous ammonia on their fields, and here was this fish kill. And Belinda said, I could not have taught this better than I did right then. There's no textbook, there's no set of movies could have done this like being out there and seeing those dead fish, and those farm kids saying, last week I was out there putting anhydrous ammonia on, and 2 days ago it rained. And it was in the river killing the fish, the cause and effect of that. And Belinda won a $12,000 GTE grant to do this stuff. See, what I'm talking about is getting teachers involved in writing their own grants. You got $12,000 for a small whodunit, no-place school to bring science equipment into their school. And Melinda is a interesting lady. Interesting lady. But she can write because she's found confidence in her ability to do this. And of course, what we're doing is seeing these kinds of things. What we need is we need a Bible bill in the United States, and I know this is above, because everything ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, and everything ends up in Lake Pontchartrain. If we don't do something about these throwaway kinds of things in our throwaway society, and we have to bring the kids, you would believe the sides of the river now, and I'm sure it's true down here in Louisiana with the crap that's floated down the river, and it's just washed everything off the land in the Midwest, and it's all ending up, you're getting it. And so you can't get away from this national impact of the stuff we throw in Minnesota, because it's going to end up where? Louisiana. I mean, it's just going to be here. So we try to teach these kids, and the only way we can do this is through our project. Now, we have the Illinois River Project, which is the start of the project. Then we got a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we brought in these 4 schools. And Minnesota's really done good, and Iowa's getting better, and Wisconsin is lagging far behind. We haven't been able to find a university to take it over. Wherever we found a university's person to handle the project and have the energy, of course, I will tell you, all your university people here are, if you get into this sucker eats you alive. I eat, breathe. I have people calling me at home at night. Cindy calls at 10 o'clock saying we got to do this, that. Here I am. You know, it'll go. I'm telling you, it will go in Louisiana. And we got a National Science Foundation grant, and we are working with about 5 states to get NSF grants to do additional training based on our program. And we'll be happy to share and write letters and do cooperative stuff and call NSF, and we have a real good reputation at NSF. They think we're wonderful. And of course, what we've done with this is we won a Chevron Award, one of about, how many in the nation, 20 or 30 this last year? And we also just won the Soil and Water Conservation Merit Award, and one of 9 given in the country. And that was a couple weeks ago. So the project is doing neat stuff that's being recognized, and of course, we can turn that into maybe some work here. Here's how our program kind of works. We're an interdisciplinary program we call River Study. We do social studies, English, and science. We actually need to add a math here. We need to add art. We need to add music. Cindy put together a collection of 100 pieces of river sheet music. We have concerts that are done rivers. We have plays. We have shop teachers doing it. In the state of Illinois, one of the big movements is technical preparation. We call it Tech Prep. We have a lot of our schools using the river work to go into Tech Prep. And if any of you are interested in that area, we have a couple high schools that are leaders in the state of Illinois in technical preparation. And of course, this is how it sort of looks. Here we have meanderings. We do historical research and social studies. We do interviews, political action. Of course, we always have a computer winding its way through there. We do the water testing and analysis, computer network. We do environmental education. Kids do individual research. And of course, they write articles. We've had a couple of the kids write articles for national magazines. And of course, with the language component, we have followed the model of the Foxfire, not completely, because Elliot Wigington ended up in jail for molesting a boy, and I don't think that's going to happen to me. So we're not following him completely, but the idea is wonderful. Okay, so we're doing a lot of interdisciplinary kind of stuff, and it didn't start out that way, because all our grants have been basically science. But as you notice, here Cindy sits. If I could have filled this all up with science people, it would have gone a different way. But I didn't want it to be science. I wanted it to be interdisciplinary. People like Cindy are the ones that create and take the words that I think and put them down, and that the group thinks and puts them down into a way that other people communicate, that we can communicate to other people. Okay, so the first thing we do is we get everybody together. Now, if we want to run a training session, we do 2-day training sessions to get people started. Here's what I'm proposing in Louisiana. Louisiana come up with $25,000. I think we can put together something for $25,000. Okay, we need to put it together from a bunch of different people. I'll bring a group of teachers down who are wonderful teachers who've been doing this 3 and 4 and 5 years, and we'll do our first training session. And then if you need our help in the second training session when you do it the next year, then I'll send some of you university people your Eisenhower stuff, and you can set up your own thing, and then you'll have people a year doing this stuff that you can then use as trainers. And when we do this first training session, we say everybody in there, you possibly would be the trainer next year. And and the more you do and the more experience you have, the better chance you can spread this through Louisiana. So you're going to be. Then if you need some help, we'll bring another set of trainers. We'll work with the people until you can do it on your own. Indiana's 2 years old, and they did their first training session this summer without our help. You don't really need our help just to get started and to bring some of our experienced teachers down. And we'll do it for pretty cheap, just to basically cover our expenses. We're not making any money. In fact, I'm here, compliments of somebody's money, and you're not paying for me to come down here because I feel that, actually, Marilee bought dinner, I shouldn't say completely. But we came here not for money, and money is not a key thing that drives us. We hope we can get enough money to cover costs as always, and this was covered by our selling a few things and having enough extra money. And because NSF gives us money for dissemination, we can come and do these kinds of things. So we get all these teachers together. Now this is a mixed bunch. This is Cindy's group. This is the first 8. And we get together and we talk like I'm talking to you to say we're not in here for science. We're not in here for social studies. We're in here to study the rivers, and we're using whatever kind of tools we can, which are science, social studies, language arts. We want to have our kids treat rivers well by the end of the year and go on and treat them and learn them. We've got kids that have come out of our project. Cindy had one who's now the president of the Environmental Education Club at the U of I. That came out of this program, she got turned on. Well, she also got so turned on that her mother now is a major volunteer for the Sierra Club in Alton, Illinois. Come out of getting involved in that kind of program because kids up to this year have no way in their local high schools to become environmentally involved. There's nothing that exists for kids. There's football, basketball, every other kind of thing, cheerleaders, but there's nothing to become involved environmentally, and kids want to be that way. So we're asking them to do that. So we talk about this. Then we get teachers out on the river. Now this is not only the science teacher, this is the English teacher and the social studies teacher. They're all out on the river, and they're learning how to run the tests. So we run them all the way through. We get down and do every single one of the tests out there beside the river, and this is what we would do with your teachers. Get them down there using the Secchi discs, To figure the turbidity, we run 9 tests that are a National Sanitation Foundation has developed that give us a water quality index. I was told that some of these, we try to be safe. Alan Burbank is one of our crazy teachers from Chester. He was almost ready to give up, retire, and he got into the river project. He's having so much fun. Right now he's with a group of his kids up we have a sister school in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and he and his kids are up in Sault Ste. Marie, or were up there last week. Alan's great, one of our trainers and writers. They're trying to get water. That's a barge. That is underwater now. Okay, then we get back and we begin to do the tests with the teachers. They run through them all. She's the chemistry teacher. He's a history teacher. Continue going through the tests. Then they come back and discuss the results, talk about what they're doing. You will go back. I know all of you geography people will go back and see how you want to do this kind of stuff with your kids. Getting together and discussing is an important part of this thing. Then we have a language arts component. We teach them how to do interviewing. We teach them how to do technical writing. A lot of the people, even though they've been science people, have not gone through a technical writing program because when they went through, technical writing was not a part of the curriculum. And I'm sure that some of you who've been through science training programs, Paul, you've been through a long time ago. We didn't do technical writing when we went through school, did we? Yeah, right. Not at all. And maybe you do a little bit of it when you're in a master's program. So we began to develop those kind of skills. Small group breakouts to talk about how to develop history and language programs. Then the next thing is to go back to your school and get the kids ready to go out and do this stuff. And we have a contract that we send out to every one of the schools, and the contract must be signed by the superintendent of the schools. So when you talk about Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we don't go to a teacher and say, hey teachers, do you want to come to this training? We say, hey teachers, do you want to become a part of this training? If you do, then the superintendent has to sign a contract that says he will allow you to get out on the river and do the testing. Okay? Because sometimes teachers are powerless if they come to do training if the school won't support them when they get back home. So every one of our schools has a contract. This is not a binding contract, but at least the superintendent has to sign it saying they know that the kids are going to be out on the river doing the training. And of course what we do is get them out there. Mississippi River is a dangerous river. I don't know if it flows as fast down here as it does up there, but it moves 6 to 10 miles an hour. And so one of the problems we always face is danger. And of course the other thing is we have to be concerned when we're collecting data. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife uses our data, and so does the state of Illinois EPA. And the data has to be good data, and you have to teach the kids that you don't just throw this thing out and collect the water. It's got to be done at it's got to be done at a certain point. You've got to do 3 replications of the testing of the water. So it's real important when you've got a stream. This is a river, this is a Mississippi, and you have to get good water out of it. Well, I know that right here, the water may be X, and over here on the Missouri side, it may be Y, and there's no relationship between the waters because there could be a dump over there, and it doesn't mix for 50 miles down because the river is so wide. Well, the kids have to learn to deal with that, but they have to do some kind of valid sampling. So we try to get that going, and of course they do every kind of sampling device to get out there and get that water. Joel is an English teacher. He goes out every day. He is an ally beyond belief to the environmental movement because he can write and read, and he brings in this aesthetic value that us poor science teachers never even knew we could create in a bunch of kids. And these are inner city kids that Joel works with in Cahokia right across the river from St. Louis, and they only have one place they can get down to the river because industry holds it in pretty strong bond, and industry doesn't want them down there for insurance reasons and stuff like that. But they're a real active group. And this is all done in Cahokia in study halls. All is volunteers by the kids. And they've had some great kids come through the project. The other thing that I absolutely will stand here and tell you is that one of the problems in United States science education is girls in science. And I don't think any of you who are in the academic field can pick up some kind of journal sometime during the year and you will find a discussion on we have problems with getting females into the sciences. And in fact, they say only between 8 and 10% of the scientists in the United States and the Western world are women. And that's disproportional compared to the number of women in society in general, which is 55%. And it's the way we, over the years, have been teaching science education to girls. Well, I will tell you that the environmental movement is one way to get girls into science education. And it may be the only way we're going to get them into chemistry and physics if they come in through the environmental movement. And our environmental education programs in most of our high schools have at least 50% or more girls. Okay? It's the only science programs in the high school that have 50% or more girls. So environmental programs are absolutely necessary if we're going to recruit women scientists. So hear me loud and hear me strong. To get females in science, if you don't have environmental education programs, you're going to continue to eliminate women from science. And these programs do it, and our girls are our strong ones in the program, on down the line. Of course, we do all of these tests. We try to follow chemical safety. These are done in chemistry classes, biology classes, earth science classes, and we're having a tremendous number of schools who are now starting environmental education classes. And again, the enrollment of females is up to, the enrollment in a chemistry class might be 25% girls, and all of our environmental ed classes will be 50% girls in the class. And of course, then they get started, and then they want to take chemistry and physics. So we try to start that. Now, some of them will test at spots where they can get out. This is the Illinois River. This bridge was underwater, okay, with the flood, so you see how high the water was. That dock is completely gone. This bridge has been there forever. It was one of the only places you can get across the Illinois River in the area just west of Springfield. And the kids go down there. They've done the history of the bridge. They have stories when the bridge was not even that big a bridge, and a horse truck came down, and the bridge was up, and the horses all died in the river. And they went back and did the history of that, and it's in Meanderings, the book that we've done. So there are all kinds of things that come out of bridges and history. Kids party down there. There's a bar up there that the kids wrote about and did a whole history of. It's a part of their culture, but nobody's ever read or written about that part of their culture along this bridge. This is on the Mississippi. Kids are putting in a zebra mussel trap. We've had a tremendous problem with zebra mussels on the Mississippi, Illinois, and I'm sure you're going to be here. Our kids are involved with the state Natural History Survey to do a complete survey of the state of Illinois. Zebra mussels, we handed 2 of those out. We got a grant from Sea Grant, handed 2 of those out to each schools. We're now working with the Natural History Survey to try to develop, because of flooding, a better picture of what's happened with the zebra mussels. And they're all over everything. I mean, they are, last year, you would find 1 to 10 villagers on a freshwater clam, the big freshwater clams. Now they find up to 600 on a single clam. They're going to destroy the native clam population in the Mississippi, in the upper Mississippi. So they're really concerned about this. Our kids are involved in this process and have been asked by the state. Our kids are involved. Every one of our kids is going to get a copy of a marker to mark the high water from the flood of 93, and we're sending that out to all of our schools, and they're going to put it on buildings. They've got the stencil, and they're going to paint on all the buildings. And the state's asked them to do this, so historically we can mark in everybody's location the high water mark. So the state of Illinois is coming to our kids saying, be involved in the project, because hell, we can't get out there and do all this stuff. But our kids are free labor, and they'll do it and become involved. Now, you were in high school. Did you have a chance to do this? No. My kids have a chance to do all of this kind of stuff. And the kids in Louisiana have a chance, because once you start this project, then industry and business and government will start coming out of the woodwork asking for the kids' help. We can actually cause too much to be placed on the teachers because there are too many expectations of them, and now we have to start choosing which expectations we want to hand out to the teachers. Well, we give them all kinds of alternatives. The governor of the state of Illinois wrote to every high school saying, "Atta boy, atta girl, keep it up. We need your data. You're a wonderful project. We love you." Signed, Governor Edgar. Okay? That's what we're trying to do with the kids to keep them going. We also have a complete benthic macroorganism study. The whole idea is to compare the benthos, the things that live in the stream, with the chemical quality of the stream. That's a part of our curriculum. This is taken off a gambling boat. It was the kids went out on the boat and are doing the study out on the river. They do it every spring. They pull together 9 or 10 schools. This is up in Moline. They all get together for a day. We had water testing competition. We didn't do this spring because of the high water, but they had water testing competition. We hand out an unknown, and all the schools compare their results with each other. Here we've got schools from little schools and big schools all together on the river talking to each other, and that never happens, but the river makes them all common. Moline High School with 3,000 kids is out there with Fulton High School with just 300 kids, and they testing the water, and they're talking to each other, and they never talk to each other under any other circumstances except because they're out on the riverboat. And of course, here are the kids doing the tests out on the boat. I keep bringing back, I didn't take pictures of girls, but I want to tell you that the girls are the real steady ones here. And I keep referring back to this. If we want to have girls in science, you need an environmental program. What happens is our kids come out of here, then they get interested in this, and then they begin to do individual studies. We have science fair winners. We're developing individual papers. We're going to be sending kids to the Illinois Junior Academy of Science meeting, the Academy of Science meeting. We have some of them have had their articles published. We have them presenting their findings to local soil and water conservation boards. All kinds of stuff is coming out of this as the kids become involved in real science. Then we go back to the classroom. They do fecal coliform, total phosphates, total solids. And some of them, we have a problem because most of our schools don't have a Spec 20 or an equivalent, and we're trying to get those in the schools. Cindy talks about her son just got an appointment to West Point and is in West Point. He's in chemistry, freshman chemistry. The whole class is automated. All of this stuff is equipment. All the test is done on equipment. Mark had advanced chemistry in high school and never saw one piece of equipment in a fairly decent school. So what we're saying to the people into the field in the chemical society, one of the things they have is some of those Spec 20s sitting down in the basement. Most of the schools won't have a Mettler balance. People from the chemical society here, the industry, will have those Mettler balances. We received 2 hydrolabs from the state of Illinois. There's these wire, whatchamacallit, that you throw out in the stream, and it does continuous data surveys. Well, the company, Elan, which sells the hydrolab in Illinois, took those in, refurnished them free, and gave them to us to be used by the schools. It was equipment that the state of Illinois could not use because it was suspect in its ability to capture good data, but for teaching high school kids, they would never have a chance to use this kind of equipment. So the relationship that can be established, as Mary Lee has with the Chemical Society, is a wonderful relationship because some of that equipment can be transferred into schools that can use it, and of course then what it is the people like you from Southern and other places to train them on how to do that. And we train all of our teachers in using the Spec 20, all the chemistry teachers in using the Spec 20, and believe it or not, that's so outmoded equipment that most people don't even use it anymore in the business or the chemistry world, and our schools don't have that stuff. And I think, Paul, you can talk to that too. You know that they don't use that. And it's a piece of junk. It's like the old Zenas, but it's still technology that our schools don't have and we can't use. Of course, the kids go through all this stuff, and the kids are serious because this is their river. This is their river, and they're serious about getting data and looking at the data. And they run the tests over, and they come in after school, before school, in between school. They come in during their free period. They're there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I'm a science teacher and a science nut. If I would have had this opportunity when I was in high school, instead of being a pest in band and getting kicked out of band and chorus, I would have been a pest in the science class and would have been learning something. But I never had the chance because nothing like this existed, and nothing like this exists in most schools, where kids who are scientifically oriented can practice their skills. And we want to give them more. Oh, love the techniques that we do. Ah, the girls, look at that, sitting there by herself. Little high school of 100 kids. Most of the kids have no idea how to read a geologic map. They have no idea where they exist in terms of the river. So we make them put in longitude and latitude, and we make them put down the river, the mile marker, and other pertinent data when they send data in. So they have to learn where they collected the stuff and learn the locations. And then when they get the data on the hypercard stack, if they want to know which relevance, they have to learn where the other person collected it. So they learn the relevance of putting down location and good data on it. And you know, I never learned that till college, when I started my bug collection when I was a junior and had to put where I collected the bugs on there. And of course, this is what the data looks like, only that's backwards, slides backwards. They put down the 9-quarter quality index thing. They have multiple tests. They convert this by a factor that was produced by this National Sanitation Foundation, and then they create a water quality index. We have a water quality index. Our most northern school is Little Falls, Minnesota, which is about 80 miles south of Lake Itasca. And our southernmost school at the present time on the Mississippi is at Cairo. And we're bringing in somebody from Arkansas this summer who will be sending data. And of course, we're looking for Louisiana. Can you imagine the kids now being able to compare data all the way up the river? And we have a site all the way in Helena, Montana on the Missouri that they can compare data, and that's the data is available to the kids. And then they can look at the data and say, look at the turbulence of our water, look at the nitrates, and they can see the difference. Okay, real data, not something made up by some book. And what we're doing is the project is providing that. Then a lot of the people go on field trips, and this is what we call technical preparation opportunities. This is the water treatment plants that they go to. Mussling is a big deal, and the kids go out and visit the musslers. Fish traps all the way up and down the river. Kids have no idea how fish are caught, and they get a chance to go. Speakers are brought in, more speakers brought in. We do historical kinds of stuff. Of course, our area is French, just like your area is French. The history and the remains of the French, people acting. Of course, what we do is we try to pull that together in writing, and the kids are taught how to write and interview. They don't know how to do this. It's never been a part of their curriculum. So instead of filling out paper blanks, they have to go talk to Aunt Maud or do something like that. Totally different, but they realize how much old people hold in their heads that they don't know. Because one of the things we try to do is get the other generations, and that information in Louisiana and Arkansas and Mississippi and Illinois and Missouri is going with the seniors. Hey, listen, my mother's 77 years old. My stepfather's 80 years old. When they die, a vast history of Montana is going to disappear with them, and the same thing is true. And what our kids are doing is trying to capture that, and whether they capture it or not, they're touching base with these people, and they'll never do that under any other surroundings, because you know how old people are. We want to stay away from them. And here they are talking to them and finding out they know a lot. And this is the wonderful part of it. They work one-on-one with the teachers, because what we want to do is you see copies laying around of Meanderings, and we ended up producing 11 copies of these books. Some of the kids that get involved in, this is an old set of steamboat pictures that were actually from the 1800s. And the kids found them in a museum and got pictures of them, and they are now being published in Meanderings. Of course, going to the cemeteries and looking at the cemetery stones gives them clues on what to do. This is the old French courthouse in Cahokia, Illinois, which is the governmental seat. And videotaping and that kind of stuff is just a must. And the kids do video and slide presentations. They do camcorders, and they photograph benthic macroorganisms and microorganisms, and they're using modern technology. And some of our schools even have the capability of taking that image off of that screen and putting it on a computer disk. And not many of them, but there's some in the Chicago area. This is the picture of the Illinois and the Mississippi when we had low water. If you would have believed that 3 years ago during the drought, and they did an aerial survey of all of the sunken life boats up and down the river, and they were able to find all of these carcasses laying there. I don't think they're probably there anymore. They've been wiped out by the river. And of course, we have the development of a river rat social organization. The river rats have several different meanings. Some are good and some are bad, depending upon what town you are in. But it is a good thing. They do plays, they do presentations, they do speeches and workshop, our little presentations in the elementary schools.
Wait a minute, Bob, let me say something. That school that has the river rats, that's Ballmeyer, and I don't know if you've heard about Ballmeyer, but it has been completely wiped off the map. The school's gone, the town's gone, and so they've had to move to county fairgrounds, and so we're...
Water in that school is up to here.
Some of our schools now have adopted Ballmeyer as their school, and they send them supplies and, paper. It's just, they've had to bring in portable buildings. They were one of the original 8 schools, and they're one of our most active schools, so that, really hits home for them.
That whole town may not exist because of the flood.
They may not even rebuild the town.
Okay, then then what we do is we have computers. We put about 200 modems out since 1990 into the schools. Essentially, in most cases, they've been the first modems going into the schools. I always like to show this picture because Jim Meyer is a retired Air Force colonel, decorated in Vietnam, flew his first missions in Korea, is a chemistry teacher. Put him in front of the computer, and his hands begin to shake. It is a really interesting phenomenon. The most difficult thing we have to get going in the River Project is the use of computers. And Jim is a perfect example. Here's a war hero that shakes when put in front of a computer. And a lovely chemistry teacher, a gentle, sweet person with kids, but in front of a computer, he becomes a total zombie. So we send everything by computer. These books, which I'll show you, Meanderings, the last issue, almost 80% of it was sent over the modem. It was downloaded to our computer. We uploaded it onto disk, and we published it. And this will continue. The communication, I have a hookup up here, my little portable, that I can get you online if any of you are interested to SIU today. So in many cases, we have antiquated computers. This is an Apple IIe, and we're slowly beginning to change over to Macintosh and IBM. But a lot of our schools do not have a computer in their science classes. And that's, again, another thing that industry can do, is take some of your computers and give, because if all we're using them for is word processing, we don't need a fancy 486, we need a 286 that has some capability of typing for the kids, and transmitting data. And we can get a phone line put in to the school. And the other thing the industry can do is to adopt a school to begin to do this, because it costs a couple $100 and schools don't have the $200, at least in Illinois, and I'm sure that's true I know it's true of Texas, so there are things that can be done to begin to put this in. Because the teachers that use it have the modem in their classroom, and they take the kids right over there. If they have to go down to the computer center and they have to bump the principal off his modem, they don't use it. They have to have it there. All of our teachers that use it have access to it daily and have no hassle. What we do is we produce, this is our IBM, and this is how we receive the data and upload it for publishing all of this stuff. We produce Meanderings, which is a book of the kids' writing. Meanderings is published for us free by the Department of Energy and Natural Resources. They publish it as a part of their publishing cost. They can't give us money, but they can hide the publication costs, and they've been doing this for 3 years for us. Illinois Bell has also published some stuff for us, and it's the blue book that you've got telling our communication network. Here's how we involve kids in communication. SoilNet is the name of our telecommunication program. The kids write for Meanderings. We have a newsletter, which if you give us our name and address, we'll put you on our newsletter list. We have a student congress, and Cindy will tell you about the student congress, and we have lots of presentations we have the kids do. If I had a Louisiana school here, I would have Louisiana kids set up across the side. I would take 10 minutes, and the Louisiana kids would tell you about water quality testing. It would not be me, it would be the Louisiana kids. And every place we do a workshop in Illinois, we call the nearest school, and we get 4 to 15 kids out there to talk about what they're doing. And I will tell you, we can sell River Project because the kids sell it, and they sell it magnificently. And every time we walk away, we will say, where do you get those kids? And we do 20 or 30 meetings a year with kids, and they'll say the same thing every time. Where did you get those kids? And we'll say, where did we get them? Every school in the state of Illinois has those kind of kids. We're just giving them a chance. And we do give them a chance. Then they go out and give presentations. This was a presentation up in Iowa to a bunch of Iowa teachers. This is my Aussie connection. He's with the Baha'i group, and they have an environmental organization trying to start the River Project in Taiwan. And we're hoping to get that off the ground. We've been trying to get funding on that. And he was over to visit our River Project and went up with Cindy to do a workshop. These is a senior citizen group they were presenting to. We'll be doing that again in the spring and doing the test. The same senior citizen group. We did one time we sent the kids out to talk to schools to recruit them. So we set up the presentations, and they went into the different high schools to get them to come in and did that project. All the time trying to get the kids to reach out and talk about what they know. And they do it voluntarily. This is a group over in Kansas City that we're showing the people the stuff. We have gotten quite a few awards, and to name a few, this was the EPA Youth Awards. President Bush signed it. We got a copy for every one of our schools. We sent a copy out for every one of our schools. And so they got it in the mail, and they got it in the paper, and the paper, award won. We don't win an award, our kids win the award. We won the Merit Award for the soil and water conservation. We make a copy of that Merit Award and send it out to every one of the schools. They now have, in a lot of the schools, an academic hall of fame. And because it says on there Amboy High School. It says on there Baton Rouge High School. So they began to develop some ownership in the project just because we won all these awards. And we're going to keep on doing that because we want to say to the kids, what you're doing has value. And I will guarantee you that if you start this project in Louisiana, you will win the same awards we're winning. Because they want kids to become involved, and this is the opportunity for kids to become involved. Our big funding is by the National Science Foundation. We receive about, this year, almost $486,000. Next year, about the same. Our funding will be up. We are producing a set of curriculum materials, and we have copies of those, and I can send some of you copies of those. We will be publishing those. It looks like Addison Wesley is going to take, we have a contract with Addison Wesley. All we have to do is sign the contract. The contract, I don't get the money. The money comes into the university, and they're taking 5%, and the rest of the money will come back to the River Project. So 95% of our royalties will come back into the River Project for me to come out and apostolize, as I'm doing with you right now, or to go visit Joel in New Jersey to do the same thing. So we're trying to find out ways that we can do to get enough money to keep Cindy, at least Cindy, involved in the project, because I can always go back and teach and leave Cindy with a major part of the work. And she's going to talk about the Student Congress. We got additional funding, and of course this is growing. Illinois Bell, State Board of Higher Education, DENR, Sea Grant, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We got $3,000 from the Wildlife Foundation, the National Wildlife Foundation, right, Cindy? Is that what it's called? In Washington, D.C. We've gotten money from Caterpillar. We're working with the Sun Foundation. It's been amazing. The people are not giving lots, but we've been able to put all of this money to work. And what we're trying to do is to get local people to get local contact with agencies and with government. It's been our big push this last year, because all it does is we reroute the money. We'd rather have the money go to the locals. And we'll take the big money. We only want 25 to 100,000 is all we'll deal with anymore. Because we want, that was funny. That was meant to be funny. Okay, so that's kind of what the project, and I'll let Cindy talk about the Student Congress and a few of the things that she's been involved in, if we can get the lights again. And then we got Sea Grant. Any of you are interested in zebra mussels, this is a zebra mussel trap. And if any of you are doing zebra mussel research, this is a modified Hester Denny device. We drop it in the water and the zebra mussels come along here. We make these, sell them for $12, cost us $6 to make them. And you can buy these from us if you want to do zebra mussel. You won't find them any better buy, but that's how we're trying to raise money. We have a lot of problems getting money for Student Congress. This is because teachers and schools don't have money to come up, and Cindy can talk about the Student Congress because that's her baby, and we want to take a break before we do this. And I'm tired of talking, and thank you for listening to our slide presentation, and we'll continue to chat about how Louisiana can do the same kind of thing.
Before you all leave,